Tenzin Gyatso, also known as the Dalai Lama, born on July 6, 1935, is the spiritual leader and head of state of Tibet. After the Chinese invasion of Tibet in 1949, it was suggested to the revered Dalai Lama that he take full political power and was conferred the title of Dalai Lama. In 1954, he went to Beijing to engage in discussions with Chinese leaders such as Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping regarding peace negotiations and the return of Tibetan soldiers. The Dalai Lama's messages of peace, nonviolence, interreligious harmony, global responsibility, and compassion have been widely recognized since 1959. He has received numerous honors, awards, and honorary doctorates in acknowledgement of these ideals. The 14th Dalai Lama, born on July 6, 1935, in a small village near Tibet, was recognized as the Dalai Lama at the age of 2 based on signs and dreams by a Buddhist search party. He was enthroned before turning 4. He received education at a Buddhist monastery and earned a doctorate in Buddhist philosophy. In 1950, when he was 15, the People's Liberation Army of China entered Tibet after the establishment of the communist government under Mao. Despite having considerable authority, the Dalai Lama could not withstand the Chinese forces, and in March 1959, he fled to India during the Tibetan uprising. Thousands of Tibetans lost their lives in this revolt. The Dalai Lama sought refuge in the small town of Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh, which is now considered the seat of the Tibetan government in exile. Approximately 80,000 Tibetan refugees gathered around him in the vicinity. The Dalai Lama highlighted the struggles of the Tibetan people globally and made efforts to preserve Tibetan culture. His appeals led to international discussions on the issue, advocating for the protection of Tibetan people's rights and dignity. He has met with renowned religious, spiritual, and political figures worldwide and suggested a middle way for Tibet. In 1987, he proposed the 5-point peace plan, advocating for Tibet to be recognized as a zone of peace. In 1984, his book, Kindness, Clarity, and Insight, was published. In 1989, when he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, it created tension with China. However, the Dalai Lama's global recognition continued to grow, and he was honored with the Leopold Lucas Prize. The Dalai Lama is warmly welcomed in many countries as the political leader of Tibet. The headquarters of his government in exile is in Dharamshala, Himachal Pradesh, where he has been residing since 1960. The 14th Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso, is considered a symbol of human love, peace, nonviolence, self-esteem, duty, and global brotherhood. He is highly esteemed and respected by millions of Indians, Tibetans, and citizens worldwide who embrace democratic values. Process of democratization. In 1963, the Dalai Lama proposed a democratic constitution for Tibet. Over the years, he made several amendments to it. However, until May 1990, the fundamental changes initiated by the Dalai Lama could not be implemented as a functioning democratic government. In that year, the elected Tibetan parliament in exile, following the advice of the Dalai Lama, amended the Tibetan constitution and introduced provisions for the direct election of the political leader of Tibet. The members of the elected political leadership are approved by the parliament, and the elected political leader appoints members of his cabinet. The first directly elected political leader assumed office in September 2001. World Peace. After his exile, the Dalai Lama came to India and drew the world's attention to the atrocities in Tibet. In India, he settled in Dharamshala, also known as Little Lhasa, where around 80,000 Tibetan refugees joined him. While residing in India, the Dalai Lama appealed for assistance from the United Nations, which was accepted. His proposals included ensuring the self-respect and human rights of Tibetans, environmental conservation, and preventing China from using Tibetan territory for nuclear weapons and waste disposal. In the following years, the Dalai Lama traveled to over 50 countries to promote world peace. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1989, and in 2005 and 2008, he was listed among the world's 100 most influential figures. In 2011, the Dalai Lama retired from political leadership in Tibet. He has become active on social media, spreading his teachings globally. Several documentaries and films have been made about his life. 5-Point Peace Plan. On September 21, 1987, addressing members of the United States Congress in Washington, D.C., the Dalai Lama presented a 5-point peace plan. Transformation of the entire Tibetan Plateau into a zone of peace. Abandonment by China of its policy of population transfer threatening the existence of the Tibetan people. Respect for the fundamental human rights and democratic freedoms of the Tibetan people. Restoration and protection of Tibet's natural environment and abandonment of China's use of Tibet for nuclear weapons and nuclear waste disposal. Serious negotiations on the future status of Tibet and the relationship between the Tibetan and Chinese people.